Mr. Ambassador, thanks for joining us. I wanted to ask you first, what is your understanding right now of the situation in eastern Ukraine?
Well, Candy, right now, Ukraine is a country in mourning. Prime Minister Yatsenyuk was in Odessa today. He made the point that the violence there on Friday was a tragedy not just for the city of Odessa, but for the whole country. And I would say, having spent some time in Odessa just 3 weeks ago and spoken with a broad range of political and civil society leaders, there's nothing that I heard and saw while I was in that city which would explain what transpired on Friday night. And I think it suggests that somebody wanted this violence to explode the way it did. And I think at this point, the whole country is trying to figure out what happened, how to pull together, and how to make sure that those who are trying to divide the country will not be successful.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, there's probably no time to beat around the bush. Do you believe that Russia and President Putin are behind what turned out to be, I believe, the bloodiest day thus far in this back and forth?
Well, we certainly believe that Russia is exercising influence across eastern Ukraine. We don't have evidence of the Russian role in what the tragedy that transpired on Friday. Prime Minister Yatsenyuk used some very strong words today, talking about the role that he believes that Russia played. And this is something that we hope a impartial and systematic investigation will be able to get to the bottom of very quickly.
And when you're talking about the tragedy that happened Friday, you mean when pro-Russian demonstrators were pushed back into the government building they were occupying, apparently by pro-Ukrainian protesters, and then the building was set on fire and more than 40 people died. That's what you're talking about, correct?
That partially, yes, but also the fact that you had pro-unity demonstrators who were targeted by pro-Russia activists, some of whom appeared to have weapons, guns, and most disturbingly, there seems to be evidence in social media that some of the police in Odessa may have been complicit in allowing this violence to spiral out of control the way it did. That's something which Prime Minister Yatsenyuk spoke to today, and I see that he's already brought some major changes in the security leadership there in Odessa, which I think reflects the deep concern about the role that the security establishment played in Friday's violence.
Mr. Ambassador, the ongoing fear here is that President Putin, with these clashes and with the movement of Ukrainian forces trying to quell some of this violence, he now has the excuse he needs to move in. Is that the consensus there?
Well, not at all. We hope that Russia will play a constructive role. It's important to remember the more hopeful event that happened over this long May Day weekend was the release of the detained OSCE diplomatic military observers in Slavyansk. Russia played a decisive role in accomplishing that. It demonstrates that Russia has influence and can play a constructive role when it wishes to do so. And we hope that that's very much the approach that they will take in the days ahead. But this is an extremely delicate situation, and certainly the extraordinary violence in Odessa on Friday has made the situation more fraught.
Right. And finally, Mr. Ambassador, this looks like a civil war. It certainly sounds like a civil war. Is there any reason to believe that that's not what we're watching unfold?
No, I don't see that yet, Candy. What I see is a society which is facing extraordinary threats of division, but where the dominant opinion in every public opinion survey from every Ukrainian I talk to is, how can we get our country to pull together again? Clearly, there are forces that are trying to deepen division, and sadly, some of those forces seem to be coming from outside the country, from Russia. But the dominant mood in the country is, how do we end this violence and how do we pull the country together again?
Ambassador Jeffrey Pyatt, U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, thanks so much for your time today.
No, good talking to you.
Thanks.